Today on Upfront.
I think what the president said goes beyond irresponsible. It's dangerous.
What these guys are doing, Democrats are doing to this country, is a disgrace.
Impeachment begins. House Democrats expand their investigation of the president with an eye toward removing him from office.
This man is a national security threat. This man is dangerous.
Next, Congresswoman Gwen Moore on where the drama goes from here. Plus, the politics of impeachment, what's at stake for Democrats and Republicans. And controversy over the next generation of Air Force fighter jets, what Madison can learn from another city's experience.
Taking on the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Upfront with your host, Adrian Pedersen.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Adrian Pedersen is off today. I'm Matt Smith. It is a high-stakes clash between the House and the White House. The U.S. House of Representatives is moving forward with a formal impeachment inquiry into President Trump. In a moment, I'll be talking with Milwaukee Democratic Congresswoman Gwen Moore about what's happened and how she might vote. But first, a quick review of the fast-moving developments. A whistleblower says President Trump abused the power of his office to solicit interference from a foreign country in next year's election. The complaint also alleges the White House tried to lock down the electronic transcript of a call between the president and Ukraine's president. A White House summary of that call shows President Trump asking Ukraine's president for a favor and suggesting he look into Trump's rival, former Democratic Vice President Joe Biden and his son Hunter. Democrats accuse the White House of a cover-up. The president denies any wrongdoing.
And I have to put up with Adam Schiff on an absolutely perfect phone call to the new president of Ukraine. That was a perfect call.
So what happens next? We're asking Milwaukee Democrat Gwen Moore, who joins us now from Washington. Congresswoman, welcome back to Upfront.
Thank you so much, Matt. Nice talking to you today.
I'm curious, has Speaker Pelosi given you any indication of how this process now moves forward and what's next? And will this lead to an impeachment vote on the House floor?
Well, Matt, I think that it may very well conclude with an impeachment vote, perhaps by Thanksgiving, although we're not tethered by any particular time frame.
Given what you've seen and what you've read this week, would you vote to impeach the president at this point?
I absolutely will vote to impeach the president. I have, in fact, voted for articles of impeachment. And it's not because I have rushed to judgment. I think that the elements of the Ukraine case have been alleged previously, but Bob Mueller said that he couldn't establish conclusively that our president had conspired with a foreign government to interfere in the 2016 election. And now we really have proof from the mouth of the president and folk like Rudy Giuliani that they, in fact, have solicited support from the Ukraine government to help them manufacture evidence against one of his political opponents. It's just astounding and shocking. But we actually, the burden of proof has thrown itself right into our faces.
The president has said in recent days that this will immediately end any bipartisan efforts, whether you look at gun reform or drug prices. I'm curious from your perspective, who's been supportive of impeachment for some time now, what's the end goal here, especially if you look at the Senate side of things, and it's unlikely at best that they would convict if the House impeaches?
You know, I'm not so sure that it's unlikely that they'll impeach. I mean, you may not be able to recall, but I can recall the Nixon impeachment, where Republicans, like our Senator Ron Johnson, for example, were supporting Richard Nixon right until the end. And I think that when there was just an abundance of evidence, when the facts were actually laid out for the American people, suddenly you saw that everything came together and Richard Nixon resigned. So it's not really clear to me that we won't be able to convict and remove him.
You said on this show almost a year ago to date that impeachment is a political act and it takes two sides to do it. Curious if you still agree with that.
I absolutely agree with it. And you know, Matt, just in the last 24, 48 hours, you have seen a double-digit increase in the percentage of Americans who now agree with impeachment. I talked to a wait staff yesterday who said that now this seems so much more clear to her why we need to impeach versus all of the shenanigans that we went through with trying to educate the public about the Mueller investigation. And so I think that we're bringing the public along, which is part of the process. But I do think that we've also seen some cracks in the Republican resolve to defend this president.
At the same time, there has to be some risks for Democrats, right? A year away from the election?
Well, this is not a business to get into if you don't want to take risks. I mean, this is our constitutional responsibility. It's not just that we don't like this man. This man is a national security threat. This man is dangerous to our democracy and to our foreign policy, our allegiances around the world. He is dangerous, and it's our responsibility under Article 1 of the Constitution to follow that. I would note that we have some of our most endangered freshmen who come from districts where Trump won. People with national security backgrounds who have recently stepped up and said, we have got to impeach this president.
I do want to ask you about Joe Biden and what Republicans have been talking about this past week. Does anything give you pause about his involvement with Ukraine? As vice president, the threat to withhold $1 billion if they didn't fire their prosecutor, his son working for a company they could have been looking into?
Well, that has been litigated already. There is nobody anywhere on the world stage that believes that Hunter Biden did anything wrong or that Joe Biden did anything wrong.
We've seen this play out on Capitol Hill and in Wisconsin big picture as we close out here. Democrats say this is their smoking gun. Republicans say there is nothing here. What does this say about the political divide as we head into 2020? And does any of that concern you?
Well, the divide is certainly closing in as we see more and more and more independents and even Republicans come toward the side of recognizing we have a dangerous president. I have served with Paul Ryan, with Senator Johnson, Reince Priebus, who was once the chief of staff of President Trump. And I think it's just egregious that people who have risked their integrity supporting this president, we have seen them sort of lose their stature in the political realm on behalf of a clearly corrupt president. And I think that they're collateral damage, and I'm sorrowful for that.
Milwaukee Congresswoman Gwen Moore. Congresswoman, thanks so much for your time from Washington.
And thank you.
Upfront asked every Republican member of Wisconsin's congressional delegation to appear on today's program. None of them were available this week. Next, the politics of impeachment. ABC political analyst Rick Klein on the Democrats' big gamble. And the big question, could impeachment help the president in 2020? And later, Madison homeowners worried about the F-35 and noise. We'll look at another city's experience with the new Air Force fighter jet when Upfront continues.
Upfront, brought to you by WPS Health Insurance.